Hello and welcome to another episode of Damon's Tabletop Terrain. And on today's episode, I'm going to go through uh, some of the techniques I used to make a desert-style table for the Star Wars Legion tabletop game. So for this table, um, I used wooden panels that had foam sheeting applied to the top with glue, and then they were sealed with Durham's water paste and then painted. And so I had some hills on some, and I wanted it so that I could arrange these tiles in different patterns, so that I could have hills on different sides of the map and in reverse and whatever. I could have a central hill if I wanted to. In this case, I built a little sarlacc pit tile, so this sinks down like a pyramid with the sarlacc at the base. So I had two camping tables sort of prized apart so this would fit in the gap, and then the tiles would sort of fill in those gaps. And so you can have a sort of a nice pit on the map rather than having a sarlacc on a hill, which some builders have been doing, and that didn't really make much sense to me. And a lot of this Tatooine style building terrain, I purchased the SDLs from a great website called imperialterrain.com. These are some of the cleanest STL files that I've ever printed. I've never had any issues with printing their STLs. And if you don't have a printer, you can actually buy ready printed models through their website via a linked Etsy shop. But I highly recommend their models if you want really nice buildings for your desert themed tabletops. And then I made some sort of standalone smaller terrain just out of foam and water putty to seal it, and so it's pretty tough and hardened before you paint it. And so let's go through some of the things. So if you want some different looking terrain or rock types, and you don't have much foam sheeting available, you can make terrain out of pretty much anything. So in this case, I wanted some kind of like weird sandy stacks. And so for this, I just cut some cardboard boxes up into nice circles and then overlaid them so they were kind of slightly off as you stack them, and then applied Durham's water putty to the entire model to kind of seal it and just clear in those corrugated openings on the edges. And then you can prime and paint and dry brush and add some sand onto it for some texture, and you get just a different look rather than obvious stacked foam cubes. For this table, I used a couple of things that I don't usually use. Plaster cloth, which is a material that you can cut into sheets and then sort of lap over your terrain to make sort of more smoother hill type kind of effects instead of having jagged edges on your terrain. I did get some joint compound, which I was trying initially, and that works fairly well for sealing quite well. But I do prefer Durham's water putty. This just sets harder and cracks a lot less. But you can get away with joint compound if you can't find Durham's. So here's an example of just some foam pieces that I cut with a hot wire cutter, and then I cut in some patterns. And then I applied here the cloth material, which you sort of wet and then apply, and then you can cover that with your water putty or compound, just to sort of want to fix the foam to it nice and firmly, but it also seals it nicely and smooths off any obvious cracks that you don't want. And it adds a little bit of weight to it so it stands quite nicely. Here's another standalone piece here. This was just a toy that I found on eBay that was about the scale that I wanted. Star Wars Legion does actually sell a crashed pod kit that's very nice, which you could use if you can't find toys. And then I just applied this to a firm base and put on some of the putty, made some patterns like it crashed into the terrain, added some sand to it, added a piece of burnt beach driftwood that I found, and painted that up, dry brushed, added a bit of sand to it for texture, and you get a quite nice effect here for some minimal terrain. And you can add sand and just mix up your textures a little bit. I didn't quite get the texture quite right here. It seems a bit stringy, um, but it can look pretty good when it's done. And here's another angle, so you see the nice where the sludged in through that sand and the rocky terrain. And here's another one. This was another toy that I found on eBay that was a different type of speeder, um, about the same scale as the speeders in Legion. So it was quite nice to just sort of just weather that up and then insert it into the putty base texture. I had an old Warhammer skeleton, so I added that in as the pilot who managed to get out of his speeder, but then succumbed to the heat of the Tatooine Desert. And just added some washes and then glued on some sand particles, and I think I added a little bit of charcoal here, a little bit of burnt etching because of the crash. So you can get some nice effects just by using simple toys that you can get on eBay. Here's another toy example. This is a toy of a Sarlacc that I found from one of the action figure ranges. And this was built at the base of several layers of foam sheeting. So I made a sort of inverted pyramid that this sat in, and then I added putty paste around it and gave it some washes of some browns and blacks just to get some detail into those cracks, and it gives a really good effect, I think. I just positioned the house here for scale. This poor guy just built a house right next to a Sarlacc pit, so I don't think he'll ever resell that. And here's a model that I got from the Thingiverse site, but also through the Facebook Legion Terrain group. There's a guy there called Ryan Biesecker who was making some beautiful STL files based on um, uh, ships and vehicles for the Star Wars Legion universe, and he was very generous in posting those on Facebook and putting them on Thingiverse for people to use for free. Just beautiful models. So thank you, Ryan, for those. And here's the Sarlacc pit again, placed at the center of the board as a nice sort of obstacle for your miniatures to try and avoid. And so for the buildings, you can add little posters to give them a little bit more authenticity and realism. And these were just files that I just found online. You can just Google Star Wars posters, and some people have been good enough to sort of post these things up, and you can just download them, resize them, and print them off as tiny little posters that you can apply to your buildings. There are some that are, obviously rebel posters, and some that are nice Empire join the Empire kind of posters. But there's also some kind of cool movie posters and tourism posters for Mos Eisley, and some wrestling posters here and wanted posters. So you've got a nice range of things that you can apply to your buildings. These are some STLs that I haven't quite finished. Some building terrain that I printed off again from Imperial Terrain. And so I've added the posters. I've still got to weather them and add a bit of dirt and grime because they look a little bit too clean at the moment. But I think they'll be good when they're finished. And I'll post a video of this terrain when it's completed. And so, as you can see, these are the tiles put together, and here's a hill with some troops, some of the tea light pillow stuffing wrapped lighting explosions which flicker and give a bit of realism to your battles. Some of the Imperial terrain buildings here. I think these cases and platforms, I think they were also Imperial terrain, just some little pieces that you can just scatter around for light cover. And you can obviously arrange these tiles in several different configurations depending on what you want as a central hill or hills on the edges or the side of your map. And they're very hardy. Once you've put that water putty on these things are like concrete on these foam covered tiles attached to wooden boards that I picked up from Home Depot. I think they were, I'm trying to think now, a couple of foot square, I think they were. So they hold up pretty good, but obviously you need space to store them. It's not like rolling up a mat. But and you do get these kind of obvious cracks on your table. But in general, I think they look pretty good. So I hope you've uh, found this to be useful in your own table terrain builds. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting some more videos out shortly on some other terrain and some painting of some models. So please like and subscribe as it helps the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you.